Have you ever wondered why you feel so overwhelmed by life, constantly chasing things that never seem to bring lasting peace? Are your emotions, possessions, or relationships weighing you down, even though you've tried everything to let go? What if the key to true freedom isn't in accumulating more, but in letting go of everything you think you need? Let's take a simple example. Imagine you're holding a heavy backpack filled with stones. Every step you take, the weight of the backpack grows, and your body starts to ache. But the more you focus on the weight, the harder it becomes to move. Now, think of this backpack as your attachments, the things you cling to in life. As long as you're holding on to them, your journey will always feel heavy. Welcome to Wisdom Woven, where we explore powerful concepts like detachment and how they can lead to a life of peace, freedom, and inner joy. Today, we will discuss how letting go of attachments is one of the most profound teachings in Buddhism. By embracing detachment, you can unlock the peace and clarity that you've been seeking. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% subscribe. So, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us grow and continue bringing valuable wisdom to you. Are you ready to transform your life? Let's begin this incredible journey together. Detachment doesn't mean abandoning everything, but rather understanding that holding on too tightly only creates suffering. This concept is the essence of Buddhist teachings and offers a path to peace. Stick with us through this video, and you'll discover how the power of detachment can bring more joy and balance into your life than you ever imagined. Are you ready to learn how letting go can be the key to your happiness? Stay tuned. Understanding the roots of attachment. When we look at life, we see that everything we hold dear seems to be a source of attachment. We form connections with people, objects, ideas, and even emotions. These attachments are so deeply ingrained that we often fail to recognize them. They are the roots of much of our suffering. But what are the roots of these attachments? Why do we cling so desperately to things, even when we know they might cause us pain or disappointment? The answer lies in our minds. The human mind is constantly searching for stability, security, and comfort. From the moment we are born, we begin to form attachments to the things around us. We become attached to our family, our home, our possessions, and even our identity. This attachment gives us a sense of security. It feels like we are in control of our lives when we hold on to things. But the truth is, this very attachment is the cause of our inner turmoil. Think about it. When something we love is taken away, how do we feel? Hurt, loss, sadness. Why does this happen? Because deep down, we believe that these attachments define who we are. We think that by holding on to them, we are preserving ourselves. In reality, we are only binding ourselves to impermanence. Everything in life, whether it's a person, an object, or a situation, is temporary. Nothing lasts forever. The truth is that attachment to anything that is fleeting will eventually bring suffering. When you let go of attachment, you free yourself from this constant cycle of longing and loss. Let's look at a simple example to understand this better. Imagine you're holding a small balloon, filled with air. You are holding it tightly, thinking that it's precious. But the more you grip it, the more you feel the tension in your hand. You might be afraid that it will slip away or that it will pop, so you keep holding it, even though it's starting to hurt you. Now, imagine if you simply let go. The balloon might float away, but you will feel the release. Your hand will feel lighter, and the tension will disappear. This is what happens when we stop clinging to things. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning them. It means recognizing that they are not ours to control. In Buddhism, attachment is often referred to as grasping. The act of grasping is like holding onto a rope that's tied to something that's constantly pulling us in different directions. We grasp onto things because we believe that they will give us happiness, but the more we grasp, the more we suffer. The tighter we hold onto something, the more it hurts when it slips away. This is a cycle of craving and dissatisfaction that we experience in many aspects of our lives. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment. He identified this as the second of the Four Noble Truths. The first truth is that suffering exists. The second is that suffering arises from our attachment to things that are impermanent. The third truth is that there is a way to end suffering, and that path is through detachment. The fourth truth shows us how to reach that detachment through the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, let's take a moment to reflect on how attachment plays out in our lives. Think about a time when you felt anxious or upset because something was not going the way you wanted it to. Perhaps it was a job, a relationship, or even a personal goal. How did it feel? The more we desire something, the more attached we become to the outcome. We want to control the situation, and when we can't, we feel frustration and disappointment. When we attach ourselves too strongly to outcomes, we are setting ourselves up for suffering. But if we can learn to let go of the need for control, we can experience a deep sense of peace. The key is to realize that our happiness does not depend on external things. Our happiness comes from within. It is a state of mind that is not reliant on what we possess or how things turn out. Let's consider another example. Imagine you have a beautiful flower in your garden. You love this flower, and every time you see it, it brings you joy. But what happens if a storm comes and the flower is destroyed? If you are attached to the flower, you will feel devastated. You might even feel as though something precious has been taken from you. But if you understand that everything in life is transient, you will see that the flower was a gift in the moment, and when it fades, it makes space for new beauty to arise. Attachment blinds us to the impermanence of life. It makes us believe that things are permanent when they are not. This belief in permanence keeps us trapped in the cycle of attachment and suffering. But once we accept that everything is constantly changing, we can begin to free ourselves from the grip of attachment. By understanding the impermanence of all things, we can cultivate a sense of gratitude for the present moment without clinging to it. Detachment is not about rejecting life or becoming indifferent. It's about being present and appreciating each moment without holding on to it. When we detach from the need to control or possess, we open ourselves to the flow of life. We learn to embrace what comes and let go of what goes. This is the essence of Buddhist practice, to live fully in the moment, without attachment, and to experience peace in the face of change. The more we recognize the roots of attachment, the more we can start to detach from them. It takes practice, patience, and mindfulness. It is a journey, not a destination. But by taking small steps every day, we can gradually loosen the grip of attachment and experience the freedom that comes with detachment. The key is to start by recognizing where you are attached and then gently letting go. The Buddha taught that by letting go of attachment, we can achieve nirvana, a state of liberation and freedom from suffering. This doesn't mean that we stop caring about the world around us. It simply means that we stop clinging to it for our happiness. When we stop expecting the world to give us everything we desire, we can start living in harmony with it. To let go of attachment is to trust in the flow of life. It's to accept that whatever happens, we will be okay. We don't need to hold on tightly to things because they are already part of us, even if they are temporary. The moment we stop holding on is the moment we start to truly live. Detachment is a practice of mindfulness. It's a way of seeing the world as it truly is, constantly changing, constantly moving, and never fixed. The more we embrace this truth, the more we free ourselves from the endless cycle of desire and suffering. As we move forward, remember that detachment is not about turning away from life. It's about turning toward life with an open heart and mind, free from the chains of attachment. When we understand this, we can live with greater joy, greater peace, and greater love. And this is the path to true freedom. This is the beginning of understanding the roots of attachment. Stay with us, and we will explore the next step in letting go of the attachments that bind us. The illusion of permanence and its impact on the mind. The mind is like a river, constantly flowing, ever-changing, and never the same from one moment to the next. But what if the mind believes that everything in life stays the same? What if it holds on to the belief that the things, people, and situations in life will always remain as they are? This is where the illusion of permanence takes root. Think about a tree. It stands firm, rooted deeply in the soil. It gives shade, it blooms in the spring, and it loses its leaves in autumn. The tree is constantly changing, yet it appears permanent. To the casual observer, the tree may seem unchanging, but this is an illusion. The tree is part of a cycle: birth, growth, decay, and rebirth. It adapts to the seasons, just as we must adapt to the changing circumstances of life. But when we mistakenly see life as static, we begin to suffer. We hold on to the illusion that everything around us is permanent. We want the comfort of certainty, the security of knowing that the things we value, our relationships, possessions, and even our own bodies, will always stay the same. But the truth is, everything in life is impermanent. The people we love change, our health fluctuates, and even the moments we treasure eventually slip away, like sand through our fingers. The mind, however, clings to the illusion of permanence because it fears change. It fears loss. It fears the unknown. But in doing so, it creates suffering. This is the root of attachment, the belief that things should never change. When change inevitably comes, we resist it, and in that resistance, we feel pain. The Buddha taught that everything in life is subject to change. This truth is known as anicca, or impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. People grow old, relationships shift, and even the most beautiful moments fade away. But rather than feeling sad or discouraged by this, the Buddha invites us to accept change as a natural part of life. When we let go of the belief that things must remain the same, we free ourselves from suffering. Think of the weather. One moment, the sun may shine brightly, and the next, clouds may cover the sky. We don't resist the change in the weather because we understand it's a natural part of the cycle of nature. In the same way, we must learn to accept the ebb and flow of life with equanimity. It's important to recognize that the more we cling to the idea that things should stay the same, the more we struggle when change inevitably comes. The person we thought we could count on forever may drift away, the health we took for granted may falter, or the job we depended on may no longer be there. Life is in constant motion, and that's what makes it vibrant and full of possibility. When we recognize the impermanent nature of everything, we can begin to let go of our attachment to outcomes. We can start to enjoy life for what it is in the present moment, without the anxiety of wondering what will happen next. The joy of life is not found in the permanence of things, but in their fleeting beauty. One of the most profound ways we experience the illusion of permanence is in our relationships. We often think that our connection with others will remain the same forever. We expect that friends, family, or partners will always be by our side. But the truth is, relationships evolve. People change, and sometimes they move in different directions. This can be painful if we hold on to the belief that things should remain static. But when we accept the natural ebb and flow of relationships, we experience less suffering and more peace. Similarly, we often cling to our own identities. We define ourselves by our job, our appearance, or our social status. But as we grow and change, these external labels become less meaningful. Just as the seasons change, so too do we. The person you were 5 years ago is not the person you are today. And yet, many of us continue to hold on to outdated versions of ourselves, believing that we must always be the same. The mind's attachment to permanence leads to dissatisfaction. We expect that life should unfold in a particular way, and when it doesn't, we become frustrated, sad, or angry. But this is where the practice of detachment becomes so important. Detachment doesn't mean that we stop caring about things or people. It means that we understand that everything in life is temporary, and we are no longer controlled by our desire to hold on to things that are beyond our control. When we recognize the impermanence of life, we can start to embrace it instead of fearing it. We can let go of the anxiety that comes with trying to control everything, and instead focus on living in the present moment. This shift in perspective is incredibly liberating. It allows us to enjoy life as it is, without the burden of attachment. Another way the illusion of permanence affects us is in our possessions. We often gather things, clothes, cars, homes, and more, believing that they will bring us happiness. But the truth is, possessions are fleeting. They wear out, break down, or lose their value over time. When we attach our happiness to material things, we set ourselves up for disappointment. The joy of a new car, for example, fades as the car ages. The newness wears off, and we find ourselves desiring something else. Yet, when we understand the impermanent nature of possessions, we can enjoy them while they last but not become attached to them. We can use things without being used by them. This is the essence of detachment. We appreciate what we have, but we don't hold on to it too tightly. In the end, the illusion of permanence keeps us trapped in a cycle of attachment and suffering. But when we begin to see life as it truly is, constantly changing, evolving, and impermanent, we can find freedom. We don't need to cling to anything because we understand that everything will pass in its own time. This realization is both humbling and liberating. By embracing the impermanent nature of life, we open ourselves to a deeper, more fulfilling experience. We can live with greater peace, knowing that nothing is forever, but everything has its time and place. And in that understanding, we find the true power of detachment, the ability to let go, accept change, and experience life fully, as it is, in this very moment. How clinging leads to suffering. The path of detachment is a long one, filled with layers of understanding, but it begins with the simplest truth. Attachment leads to suffering. This is not just a concept, it's the heart of Buddhist teaching, and it is a truth that each one of us can feel in our own lives. We attach to things, ideas, people, and outcomes, believing that they will bring us lasting happiness. But, as many have discovered, this is an illusion. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on your own attachments. Perhaps you hold on tightly to a person in your life, thinking that their presence will fill the emptiness inside you. Maybe you are attached to your job, your success, or even your possessions. It feels natural, doesn't it? We live in a world where we are taught to cling to what we have and to pursue more, as if the things around us define our worth. But here lies the paradox. The more tightly we grip these things, the more we begin to suffer. Attachment is not the cause of happiness, it is the cause of pain. Why? Because everything in this world is impermanent. The relationships we cling to change, our possessions wear out, and even our own bodies age. The more we hold on to things, the more we set ourselves up for disappointment. It's as if we are trying to hold water in our hands, expecting it to stay, but it slips through our fingers. Attachment creates expectation, and when those expectations are unmet, we feel sorrow. It is the nature of attachment to create a cycle of desire. The more we crave something, the more we become obsessed with it, and the more suffering we create for ourselves. If you've ever experienced the pain of loss, you know this feeling well. When something you love is taken away, you are left with an emptiness that seems unbearable. This emptiness isn't the result of the loss itself. It is the result of your attachment to that thing or person. The more we attach, the more we set ourselves up for disappointment. Look at the way people suffer over material things. We think that if we only had a bigger house, a better car, or more money, we would finally be happy. But no matter how much we accumulate, it is never enough. There is always something more to desire, something else to chase. The endless cycle of craving only leaves us feeling hollow. We might fill our lives with things, but we can never fill the deeper void of discontent. This is the nature of attachment. Even our emotions can become attachments. Have you ever held on to anger or resentment for too long? These feelings can grow inside us, poisoning our peace. We hold on to old hurts, replaying them in our minds again and again, as if by doing so, we can somehow change the past. But anger, like all other emotions, is a passing cloud. When we attach to it, it becomes a storm that rages within us, hurting no one but ourselves. Now, think about the people we love. Love is a beautiful thing, but attachment to a person can lead to suffering. When we attach to someone, we begin to believe that their love is what completes us. We forget that true love doesn't come from clinging, but from freedom. True love is not bound by need. It is a love that flows without expectation or demand. But when we become attached to a person, we try to control, possess, or manipulate the relationship to suit our desires. And when that person changes, or when we are separated, we suffer. The Buddhist view is clear. Suffering arises when we cling to anything that is not permanent. We must learn to let go. This is not about abandoning life, but about accepting it as it is. The Buddha taught that attachment creates an illusion of control. We think we can control life, but life is like a river, constantly flowing, changing, and unpredictable. When we stop trying to grasp at the water, we are free to flow with it. It's essential to understand that attachment is not the same as love. Love, in its purest form, is free from need. It allows space for the other person to grow and change. It does not demand that things stay the same, because it knows that all things change. When we love without attachment, we can appreciate people for who they are, without trying to control them. We can be present without expectation. This is the true nature of love, a love that is free, joyful, and peaceful. When we stop clinging, we begin to experience a sense of freedom. This freedom is not the absence of love, but the presence of acceptance. We begin to accept that life is unpredictable, that people change, and that we cannot control everything. When we embrace this freedom, we are no longer afraid of loss. We know that the things we hold dear are fleeting, but the love we give is eternal. In your own life, you may notice the things you cling to, and the suffering that arises when they are threatened. Take a moment to observe your attachments. Are you attached to your job, your appearance, your relationships, your achievements? Notice how these attachments affect your emotions, your thoughts, and your actions. Do they bring you peace, or do they create anxiety and stress? One way to begin letting go of attachments is through mindfulness. Mindfulness allows us to become aware of our thoughts and feelings without becoming attached to them. When you feel yourself clinging to something, take a deep breath and acknowledge it. Notice how it feels in your body and mind. Observe without judgment. This practice of awareness is the first step in releasing the grip of attachment. Another way to release attachment is through gratitude. When we are grateful for what we have in the present moment, we stop worrying about what we don't have. We let go of the need to possess or control. Gratitude shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already possess. It opens our hearts and frees us from the endless cycle of craving. Letting go does not mean that we stop caring about the people or things in our lives. It means that we stop needing them to complete us. It means that we accept the impermanence of all things and find peace in the present moment. When we let go, we find that life is not something we need to control or possess. It is something we can experience fully, without fear or expectation. Ultimately, the teachings of Buddhism show us that the key to freedom and peace lies in detachment. When we stop clinging to the things that are fleeting, we begin to experience the true nature of reality. We see that we are not separate from the world around us, but part of an ever-changing flow. By embracing detachment, we free ourselves from the cycle of suffering and open ourselves to the peace and joy that already exist within us. And so, we return to the question, what happens when we stop clinging? We begin to live with a lightness in our hearts, a freedom in our minds, and a peace that comes not from holding on, but from letting go. This is the power of detachment. The role of mindfulness in letting go. Imagine you are walking through a forest, and you come across a beautiful tree. The tree stands firm and tall, its branches reaching out to the sky. Yet, despite its strength, the tree doesn't hold onto every leaf that falls. It lets go with ease, knowing that new leaves will grow in their time. In the same way, we can learn to let go of our attachments, not by force, but with mindfulness and understanding. Mindfulness is the practice of being present in each moment without judgment. It's the art of observing your thoughts, feelings, and experiences as they arise and pass away. Just as the tree doesn't try to hold onto every leaf, you don't have to cling to every thought or emotion. By cultivating mindfulness, you can learn to see your attachments clearly without being controlled by them. When you are mindful, you become aware of the things that are tying you down, your desires, your worries, your fears. These attachments are not who you are, but simply passing thoughts and feelings that you don't have to identify with. Mindfulness helps you recognize them as temporary, and this recognition gives you the power to release them. It's important to understand that mindfulness isn't about suppressing your emotions or pretending that everything is okay when it's not. Instead, it's about facing your emotions and thoughts with full awareness, acknowledging them without judgment, and then allowing them to fade away naturally. In our busy lives, we often become caught up in the whirlwind of thoughts and distractions. We may find ourselves clinging to past memories or anxiously anticipating the future. This constant mental noise keeps us from experiencing the peace that comes with detachment. Mindfulness brings you back to the present moment, where nothing is fixed and everything is flowing. Through mindfulness, we learn that attachment is born from our mind's tendency to hold on to things, whether they are physical possessions or emotional states. The more we try to hold on to something, the more it slips through our fingers. This is why mindfulness is so powerful. It allows us to release our grip and simply observe what is happening without getting caught up in it. Take a moment to think about your own life. What are you holding on to right now? Maybe it's a past hurt, a fear about the future, or a desire for something you think will bring you happiness. If you sit quietly and observe these attachments, you may start to notice how they are influencing your actions and emotions. Mindfulness allows you to see these attachments for what they are, fleeting and impermanent. When you can see them clearly, you can choose to let go. Mindfulness also teaches us that everything in life is interconnected. Just as the tree does not exist alone, but relies on the soil, the water, and the sunlight to thrive, we too are part of a greater whole. Our attachments often stem from a sense of separation, the belief that we are isolated from others and from the world around us. By practicing mindfulness, we begin to realize that we are not separate from the flow of life. We are simply a part of it. The more you practice mindfulness, the easier it becomes to let go of what no longer serves you. You begin to understand that your true nature is not bound by possessions, relationships, or emotions. Your true nature is spacious, open, and free. Through mindfulness, you can experience this freedom in every moment, regardless of external circumstances. One of the most powerful aspects of mindfulness is its ability to transform how we relate to our thoughts and emotions. Rather than trying to push them away or avoid them, mindfulness allows us to sit with them without attachment. You may notice that when you sit with discomfort, it begins to lose its power. You realize that discomfort, like everything else, is temporary. It arises and fades, just like the seasons change. This is a crucial insight on the path to detachment. The more you practice mindfulness, the more you begin to see that your thoughts and emotions are not permanent. They come and go, and you don't have to hold on to them. By simply observing them, you allow them to pass without getting caught up in their grasp. This is the true power of mindfulness, the ability to let go of what you don't need and embrace the peace of the present moment. Another important aspect of mindfulness is its role in breaking the cycle of craving. In Buddhism, craving is seen as one of the main causes of suffering. When we crave something, we attach ourselves to it, believing that it will bring us happiness. But no matter how much we crave, we never find lasting fulfillment. Mindfulness helps us see this cycle of craving and teaches us to step out of it. Instead of seeking happiness in external things, we learn to find it within ourselves, in the simplicity of the present moment. As you continue to practice mindfulness, you may notice subtle shifts in your attitude towards attachment. You may no longer feel the need to hold on to everything tightly. You may start to experience moments of peace and contentment, even when things around you are in flux. This is the transformative power of mindfulness. It allows you to detach from the things that weigh you down and embrace the freedom of simply being. In every moment, there is an opportunity to practice mindfulness and let go. Whether you are eating, walking, or sitting in silence, you can bring your attention to the present moment. When you are fully present, you will begin to notice how much of your suffering is tied to your attachments. You may even begin to see how these attachments are preventing you from experiencing true joy. Mindfulness is not a quick fix, but a lifelong practice. It requires patience, consistency, and a willingness to be with yourself, without judgment. But over time, you will notice that the more you practice, the easier it becomes to let go of attachments. You will begin to experience life with a sense of lightness and freedom, knowing that you don't have to hold on to anything to be happy. In summary, mindfulness is the key to understanding the impermanence of all things and the power to let go. Through mindfulness, we can see that attachment is not a permanent part of our being. It is simply a habit of the mind that can be transformed with awareness. As you continue to cultivate mindfulness, you will find that detachment becomes more natural, and with it, you will experience the peace and freedom that comes from living in the present moment. Detachment versus indifference, finding the balance. The path of detachment is not about turning away from life or becoming cold and distant. It's about understanding the difference between healthy detachment and harmful indifference. Detachment allows you to be present and engaged in the world, but without becoming entangled in its chaos. Indifference, on the other hand, can create a disconnect from the world and the people around you. The challenge is to find the balance between these two. To begin, we must first understand what it means to be truly detached. Imagine you are sitting by a river, watching the water flow by. The water moves, it changes, it flows without resistance. You are not trying to stop it or change its course. You are simply observing, accepting it as it is. This is how detachment works in our lives. It is the ability to witness the events, emotions, and situations around us without being swept away by them. On the other hand, indifference is like standing by that same river and turning your back to it. You no longer notice its movement or beauty. You become numb to its presence. It's as though you are shutting yourself off from the world. Indifference disconnects you from life, from people, from nature. It is not true freedom. It is a form of avoidance. In Buddhism, detachment is seen as a practice of non-attachment to outcomes, possessions, or even relationships, while maintaining compassion and engagement. Detachment allows you to act with love and kindness without clinging to the result of your actions. It is the understanding that things are impermanent, and holding on to them too tightly will only bring suffering. This wisdom helps you stay calm in the face of challenges, accepting both success and failure with equal grace. Indifference, however, comes from a place of fear or apathy. It often arises when we become overwhelmed by the pain and struggles of life and choose to withdraw. We might say to ourselves, "Why bother?" or "Nothing really matters." This mindset shuts us off from the very thing that could heal us: connection to others, to ourselves, and to the present moment. It is a form of avoidance, not liberation. So, how do we find the balance? The first step is awareness. When you feel yourself becoming too attached to something or someone, ask yourself, am I holding on because I fear losing this, or am I simply enjoying it without clinging to it? Detachment does not mean that you stop loving, caring, or participating in life. It means that you understand that everything in life is temporary, and the more you try to hold on to it, the more you suffer when it inevitably changes. For example, think of your job. You may love your work, feel passionate about it, and want to succeed. But if you become too attached to the idea of success, the fear of failure or the disappointment of setbacks can create anxiety and stress. If, instead, you practice detachment, you can continue working with passion, but without depending on the outcome for your happiness. You can do your best, enjoy the process, but remain at peace, knowing that whatever happens is beyond your full control. Detachment also allows you to cultivate a deeper connection with others. When we are attached to others in unhealthy ways, we may expect them to meet all of our needs, fulfill our desires, or act in certain ways. This can lead to disappointment and resentment. True detachment, however, helps you love others freely, without the burden of expectation. You can be there for them, support them, and enjoy their company, but without depending on them to make you happy. Think of a parent and their child. A parent who practices detachment will love their child deeply, but they will also allow their child to grow and make their own choices, even if those choices lead to pain or hardship. The parent understands that they cannot control the child's journey, and by letting go, they create space for both the child and themselves to learn and grow. In relationships, detachment means recognizing that you cannot change or control the other person. This doesn't mean you stop caring or stop making efforts to nurture the relationship, but you learn to accept the person as they are, with all their flaws and imperfections. When you stop trying to change others or control the outcomes, you free both yourself and the other person to be who you truly are. This creates a deeper, more authentic connection. Another important aspect of detachment is the ability to let go of expectations. We often suffer because we expect life to go a certain way. We expect people to behave a certain way. But life is unpredictable. People are unpredictable. When we attach ourselves to rigid expectations, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Detachment allows us to be flexible and open to whatever comes, accepting life as it is, rather than how we think it should be. This doesn't mean we stop striving for goals or dreams. On the contrary, detachment enhances our ability to pursue our passions with clarity and focus. We can set intentions, work toward them, and give our best effort, but without clinging to the outcome. When we release the need to control every aspect, we find peace in the present moment, regardless of the results. Detachment also helps us navigate the challenges of life. When faced with difficult situations, it's easy to become attached to our pain or frustration. We may think, "Why me?" or "I can't stand this." But when we practice detachment, we learn to see our challenges as part of the flow of life. We can still feel our emotions and experience pain, but we don't become consumed by it. We allow ourselves to feel, but we don't hold on to the pain. We let it flow through us, knowing that, like everything else, it will eventually pass. In this way, detachment is not about escaping life, but about engaging with it more fully. It is about embracing life as it is, without the need to control or manipulate it. It is about finding peace in the midst of chaos, clarity in the face of uncertainty, and love without attachment. Detachment allows us to experience life with a sense of freedom and ease. As you continue on this journey, remember that detachment is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It is about being fully alive and fully present in each moment, without the need to hold on to anything. It is about living with an open heart, loving freely, and embracing the impermanence of life. When you find the balance between detachment and engagement, you will discover a deeper sense of peace and joy that cannot be shaken by the ups and downs of life. So, practice detachment, not as a way to withdraw from life, but as a way to engage with it more fully. Let go of the things that weigh you down, and embrace the freedom that comes from letting go. Cultivating compassion without attachment. In the world we live in, we often find ourselves caught between love and attachment. We believe that the more we hold on to someone or something, the more we are showing our love and compassion. But in truth, attachment and love are not the same. Attachment comes from fear, and love, true love, is rooted in freedom. When we cling to someone or something, we are not loving them truly. We are clinging to our own desires and expectations. Let us pause for a moment and reflect on a simple image. Imagine a mother holding her child. She holds the child with a firm, loving embrace, but she also knows when to let go, when the child needs to grow, to explore, to be independent. True compassion does not hold on too tightly. It allows others to grow and live their own journey. Compassion without attachment is about offering love freely, without demanding anything in return, and without trying to control the outcome. When you let go of attachment, you free the other person as well as yourself. Think of your love as a river. It flows freely, without force, reaching everything in its path. The river does not hold on to a particular rock or a tree along the way. It simply flows, offering its nourishment to all it touches. So too should your compassion flow without hindrance, without holding on to expectations. True compassion arises when you see another person for who they truly are, without the need to change them or possess them. You allow them to be, just as you would want to be free to be yourself. You understand their suffering, but you do not take on their suffering as your own. You offer your love and support, but you do not become entangled in their problems. This is the wisdom of detachment. There is a deep peace in knowing that you can care for someone deeply and profoundly, while not attaching your happiness to them. This is what the Buddha teaches: to love without clinging. Love, when free from attachment, becomes pure. It is not driven by need or expectation, but by genuine care and the desire for the other person's well-being. In our relationships, whether with family, friends, or even strangers, we often attach our sense of worth to how others behave or how much they love us. We think, if they love me, I am worthy. But this belief is a trap. It places the power of our happiness in someone else's hands. We must learn to cultivate compassion that does not depend on another's actions. This is true strength. Imagine a tree that stands tall in the forest, offering shade and shelter to all who come near. The tree does not demand anything in return. It simply gives because that is its nature. Compassion without attachment is like this tree. It gives freely, without asking for anything in return. And in giving, it finds peace. When you love without attachment, you begin to live with a deep sense of freedom. Your relationships become more genuine, and your actions are not driven by a need for validation or approval. You no longer fear losing someone because your happiness is not tied to their presence or approval. You can love deeply, yet remain at peace within yourself. This practice of loving without attachment is not always easy. It requires patience and mindfulness. It asks you to let go of the need to control, to let go of the fear that comes with attachment. But with practice, you begin to realize that love, when it is free, becomes more profound, more meaningful. It becomes the love that the Buddha spoke of, a love that is not based on clinging, but on understanding and kindness. You might ask, How can I love deeply without getting attached? The answer is simple, but it takes practice. It begins with self-awareness. You must first understand your own attachments, the things you hold on to, the desires you place on others. Once you recognize these attachments, you can begin to loosen your grip. When you stop seeing others as possessions or extensions of your own desires, you can love them without expectation. This kind of love is not cold or distant. On the contrary, it is warm and full of compassion. It simply does not demand. It does not ask for anything in return. It allows others to be themselves, to live their lives, and to make their own choices. You love them not because of what they give you, but because of who they are. The beauty of loving without attachment is that it opens you up to a deeper connection. When you are not clinging to someone, you can truly see them. You can see their struggles, their joys, their pain, and their growth. And you can offer your love without trying to change them. This love is pure, and it is the foundation of true compassion. Now, take a moment to reflect on your relationships. Are you holding on too tightly to someone? Are you expecting something from them in return for your love? Perhaps it's time to let go of those attachments. Allow your love to flow freely, without the burden of expectation. In doing so, you will find peace, and you will find that your relationships become more meaningful and fulfilling. In Buddhism, detachment is not about shutting yourself off from others. It is about understanding the impermanence of life and accepting that nothing is permanent, including relationships. When you understand this, you can love without fear. You can give freely, without worry about losing someone or something. Detachment in relationships also helps you to develop inner peace. When you are not attached to outcomes, you can simply enjoy the present moment. You are not anxious about the future or disappointed by the past. You are fully present with the person in front of you, offering your love and compassion without expecting anything in return. Remember, true compassion is unconditional. It is not given with the hope of receiving something in return. It is not given because you expect the other person to behave in a certain way. It is simply given because you care. And when you let go of attachment, you allow your love to flow freely and purely, just as it was meant to.